Welcome, guys. Welcome to another Speak Up Monday here every Monday at 6:30 live from Tropical Nomad here in Bali, Indonesia, Canggu. Now, as you know, Speak Up Monday is our third year now, and it's a deep dive, open format, award-winning for motivation Q&A. First thing. Now, the things that you'll find each week, and it's been, as I said, almost 3 years now, is that inspiration is caught, not always taught. So inspiration is caught, not taught. Why is that important? Because going through this process, it's an open format process. Nothing has been pre-arranged, pre-organized. It's all in the flow. What happens is that quite often, within us, we have great words of wisdom because we've all had a life. We're all unique in our own way, shape, and form. But often we don't have the opportunity to go on this excursion, on this journey, where we have questions asked that draw out, that tease out the best of us. And that's what we do, to allow you to have that inspiration and motivation to do what is next necessary for you in your lives. So people inspire people, and unity in diversity. That's Bhinneka Tunggal Ika here in Bali. These are the three things that underpin the show that you'll get part of. Now, my name is Robert Ian Bonnick. I'm your host, I'm your guide. And as most of you know by now, what I do is I help businesses and entrepreneurs reach their objectives, and obviously inbound tourism operations as well, reach their objectives using strategic partnerships. So in other words, I connect people. Now, tonight's guest, phenomenal. As you know, this month is all about taking back control of your life, reclaiming your life. And tonight we have a person that, better than anyone, has managed to reclaim her life from growing up in an abusive cult and then assimilating into society as we know it. Imagine what she would have had to have gone through. Imagine, what kind of person she would be. Well, tonight you're going to meet her. So if you're in a position where maybe you're a bit devoid of inspiration, maybe you're in a position where you right now have some tough challenges ahead of you. We're in a very unique time. Tonight will be for you, because this is a person who's been through probably the worst things that humans can do to other humans and come out on top, well-adjusted, beautiful, inspiring, amazing woman, right? So without further ado, I'm gonna grab her over here to sit next to me. So Jessica, welcome to the show, my darling. Welcome to the show. Looking beautiful in red.
Thank you.
You're stunning, like you have. I mean, we met once before.
Yes.
And we had a wee chat.
Yes.
And one of the things that comes out about you straight away to me is this, like, you seem to have this attitude of like, just shrug it off, imbibe it, but shrug it off. And obviously right now, we have a lot of people around the world who, are going through what would be or could be for them the worst prison imaginable, separated from people, not being able to look after their health and their wealth, not being able to work, right? So all of these things have a very massive impact on our mental health and our mental well-being, which is what determines who we become, right? So now we're going to go deep into your story, but probably the first question that comes up to me is that, why now? Like, why now? Because I know that recently you've started to come out and share your story. So why do you feel now is the time to do that?
Well, I feel that I have a very important message, and I have gone through an intense healing process, and I finally have made peace, and am at peace with my life and all that has happened, and I feel that my journey can serve others. And looking back at the entirety of my life up to this moment, and realizing all that I have overcome and become, I realize that there's invaluable pieces of wisdom along the way. And whether you're in a cult or you're stuck, we're all at some level in some form of cult, because a cult takes away our beliefs, or at least they control our beliefs. They take us away from ourselves. So now that I've been assimilated into society for over 15 years, I don't like to give the exact number because then you'll actually know how old I am. So I keep it vague, like 5 years.
Well, honey, you look amazing. So it's okay. Whichever number that is, you're doing good.
Okay. I understand now. I actually have great appreciation for my life and the wisdom and the tools that I have been able to gain as a result, and I really want to share this with the world. I'm very, very passionate about helping everyone remember who they are and connect back with them, their true self, their individual truth. So, and it's a energy that is inside of me. It's the same energy and force that led me out of the abusive cult. It's that same voice that's talking to me now and guiding me to write this book and to speak out. So this is actually my very first time sitting on a couch talking to someone about it. So,
you know, thank you for the honor. You know, there's no coincidences in life, is what maybe many of us believe. And even, you know, your Instagram handle, right? My Truth, My Story, right? And that's across all your social media. My Truth, My Story. So I mean, I've got an idea, but like, why did you choose to call it that?
So when I was living within the cult, everything in our life was dictated to us, including what we believed, what we could say, what we could wear, what time we went to bed. And it was very important for our cult leader as well that we have a scripted description of what was actually going on there. So for many years, even after I left the cult, I was still kind of programmed into this false reality of what actually happened there. And it was a very empowering moment when I had enough inner strength and courage to actually step aside and say, no, this is my truth, my story, my way. I'm going to speak it as I see it from my individual truth. So for me, it's empowering because it's been a very long journey to discover what my truth is, to be my truth, and now to speak it. And I also feel that we have stories, part of the healing process for me was kind of breaking down some of those stories. And a lot of the stories I had about myself, my belief systems, was based on a truth that wasn't actually mine. So by saying my truth, my story, I hope that we can all, I want to lead, or I should say, I would like to encourage and inspire people to really find out what their true truth is so that they can actually tell their true story. So I think it's very important. They kind of go hand in hand. So, and one more, or?
Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I also believe that each one of us has a story. And that's why I'm very much about my story, my truth, your story, your truth. I'm a big advocate of individual truth and discovering who you are and speaking that story and that truth out. So even now when I speak, I always like to remind people this is my truth and I only can speak what is true to me, and if it resonates, beautiful, and if it doesn't, it's okay. My only obligation in life is to connect with my truth and speak it. It has taken me a very, very long time to even know what my truth was. So that was a long process.
No, like what comes up for me is this analogy about an acorn seed, right? And the analogy goes something like this, like within an acorn seed, which is so tiny, right?
Yes.
Is all the greatness that you need to create a tree of such stature and such majesty and beauty that lasts for hundreds of years, you know? And we are that seed.
Yes.
And we all have that greatness, right, within us.
Yes.
Right? And, you know, so when I say greatness, seed, acorn, what comes up for you from your story?
Wow. It is the knowing that sits deep within each one of us. And I was raised in an environment where I should have known or felt no better. My mother birthed me at home in this cult. There was something within me that was alive from the day I was born, that was guiding me, that no matter what happened to me in my external circumstances has always and will always be alive and well. And that to me is the seed. That's the piece within us that we all have, that I want to encourage or inspire others to explore within themselves. Because that was the seed, and at very critical moments in my life, it came forward and it guided me. And now that I've been out for a long time and I've gone on my entire journey, I am building a very intimate relationship with this seed. And it is blossoming into a beautiful tree. And I want to share with everyone, we all have that within us, and we all have the ability to become a beautiful oak tree or maple tree or pine tree or palm tree. Whatever tree. We can be whatever tree we want, damn it.
Here in Bali, it's like, hey,
inner tree.
give me a palm tree, damn it. I'll take the palm tree any day.
Listen to your inner tree, not your inner voice. No.
Oh, I love it. Your inner tree.
Your inner tree.
That just might catch on. Listen to your inner tree.
Yes.
This thing about the voices, and we all have them, right? Because some of us call it self-talk. Some of us call it by other names, right? But it's definitely something which is, either taking us, in a direction that can really help to fulfill us, sustain us, help us to grow, right?
Yes.
Or sometimes there are other voices that can take us into other places, which maybe we're not talking about growth here. Now, you mentioned before, people listening here probably heard the story before, but I'll repeat it again to give a bit of context. So growing up in a kid's home for me for 18 years, from 6 months to 18, lots of different experiences. One of them was the fact that I wasn't comfortable with who I was. Even I'm a black guy, I thought I was a white guy, right? And I felt very displaced. I thought I was in the wrong body, right? And part of this time was me with a mirror up to my face, pulling this nose and lips and things apart that I didn't like about myself because it didn't align with this Caucasian way of seeing the world or seeing me. And all the voices in my head were pulling me apart, tearing me apart. But in one of these days, I think I was about 12 or something, and I don't know where it came from, right? But it was a voice that had this warm and supportive tone to it. And at the time, I didn't realize, but it felt like my soul speaking directly to me. And the first words it ever said was like, "Hey, Rob, look after your skin." It's like, what? Yeah, look after your skin. I'm like, what the heck is that? So it wasn't really the context of what it was saying or the content of what it was saying. It was the feeling that it encouraged me to have and was stirring within me when that voice came through. Now, many years later, I still had many voices in my head, but that's the one that I follow most. And when I follow that one, incredible things, miracles often happen.
Yes.
So you spoke about this voice, and that when you were born like an acorn seed, you have this greatness, you have this voice within you, and you spoke about these different times in your life where you were connected to or reconnected to. So for those people watching and thinking, well, I have many voices too, how did you find yours, and how did you nurture that voice, and how did it affect and help you in your experience growing up?
Wow, okay. Let's see here. I didn't initially find it. It came forward.
Wow.
And it was I very much can relate to that feeling, because I do think that it is a feeling. It's an overpowering feeling that feels right. It feels truthful. And in an environment where there was so much going on that was so wrong, it was almost like it was like I felt it. It was something guiding me. It was a feeling, really. And I wasn't fully aware of it until I became older. Or let me put it this way, I don't remember being aware of it until I became older. And when I started to look around the environment that I was in, and things were going on that even my brainwashed belief system recognized was wrong. And it was at that moment when I tapped into the realization that what was happening was not correct according to my belief system. It immediately, once I made that connection to disconnect from what I now was becoming, what I was now realizing was incorrect, then it was like this big just hug. It just took me and took that energy of my truth and just started to guide me. And what happened is it guided me out. There was absolutely no way that I could turn away from this voice. It was just a driving force within me. But when I then eventually was able to free myself from the cult, I immediately jumped into trying to assimilate and fit into society, and I lost it again for a long time because I didn't give it any. I thought, okay, I've left the cult, it's bad. Now all I have to do is be normal. And so I subconsciously shut it out. So for many years, I wasn't connected to it again. And I kind of went on a very long journey to some very dark places. And in my search to once again find out who I actually was and what my truth was is when I have reconnected with it. And now it's a daily practice for me to make that time to sit and listen and feel. And now I like to say I'm married to it now. We're married. We're a couple. We don't make decisions without one another. It's very, very present in my life. And I have practiced it enough that I can feel the subtle changes in my body, and I can which indicates what is right for me and what is wrong for me. And I have a little bit of a method that I'm working on that I hope to share in my book to kind of give people a very practical and simple way to connect with this. I call it knowing, and I believe that we access our knowing through our feeling. And so if we can create through a very simple process, it's very easy to feel it, then it starts to you start to just live your life almost not even aware of it because it's just so much a part.
And, there's two questions that come up, well, actually more than that, but two questions that come in. So one is, like quite often what we're taught, well, pretty much what I've been preaching for a while now, is this thing about, 0 to 7, 0 to 8, these formative years, right? Yes. Where our parental figures or the supervisors of our life, their thoughts, feelings, emotions, ideals about the world become part of us.
Yes.
And then we get locked into this, the RAS, that reticular activating system, this part of your brain that goes searching to reaffirm the things that we already believe about the world. And we go down that journey, and it's a subconscious route, and most of us never wake up, right? Yes. And we go on like that, believing what we do, and call it, bias, that bias about beliefs, right? About the way the world should be, and we won't hear it any other way because it doesn't conform to our beliefs. So the first question is like, girl, you went like the opposite direction because what you're saying is that, so you grew up, you were born into it, yet you still had this sense after some years, that's right, that's wrong, that's this, that's that. But it doesn't sound like you really had that. So how would you describe this? We said awakening, but it came to you. Like how I'm very curious.
Yeah, okay, this is a great question, and I want to think how to answer this as best I can. Yeah. I always questioned. Maybe it was a gift I was born with, but I didn't accept, although I grew up in this environment, I didn't accept everything that was told to me. I questioned it. And it actually made me quite unpopular at the cult. I was by no means the favorite cult member. Because I really wanted to understand what was being told to me. And oftentimes I would question, and I would really try to calibrate what was being told to me versus this knowing. So to go back to try to answer your question, I feel that I was born with it, and it was something that was just always present. And it just was there. I don't know. I'm trying to think, now I think I have some ways to communicate in terms of someone now as an adult, trying to find that voice within them. But as a child, it was just there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know that one's going to sit there for a while.
Yeah.
While it sits there, I have 2 kids, right? They're 5 and 7, 2 girls. Now, they're very different. The first one came out very empathetic, very aware, emotionally intelligent about what's going on around her. The younger one was like a bull and an amazing daughter. Now, chatting to Rhonda about Hanalei, she was like, well, Hanalei came in like this. She came in like this.
Okay, yeah.
All we need to do as parents were to be these, not guardians, but you're basically allowing and guiding them to be themselves, right? For that innate wisdom within them to flourish in its own way. And in many ways, I'm frustrated by that sometimes with our daughters because it's like, oh, you drive me nuts. But it's true.
Yes.
So seeing what you've just said there, I can also relate.
Yes, that does resonate. I do feel that I was born with a gift, and it has helped me connect with this voice. Yes.
Now the second question, I know you don't want to give it away, but people here, I know they want to know. I want to know. I know you've got to buy her book whenever it comes out, whatever it's called. Make sure you buy it. Do I have your word? Yes, I do. Thank you very much. So, give us some insight on this way to guide to yourself, what you're happy to share with us. I know that people here this is part of it.
Absolutely. I'm happy to share. I believe that wisdom is not something that we hold. If it comes to me, then it should be shared. So even if you don't buy my book, I am happy to share. It's not mine to keep. So writing the book is very interesting because I feel in some ways that it's intuitively guiding me. So I'm getting information that I realize it's kind of coming in spurts. So don't quote me if I end up changing some of this. But as of today and now, one of the methods that I think is very simple, and we can do it all the time, is so I believe, just to give it a little premise,
Premise is good. Okay. Premise is very good.
My sister was laughing at me because I have this way of using a word that sounds almost exactly like the word I want to use. And she literally was like, are you going to do that? I'm like, probably.
I do it all the time.
Okay. So again, I'm very much about an advocate of individual truth and helping myself and others find out their individual truth. And I'm very much about the healer, the shaman, everything is within us. And I'm about the divine human. So although we have divine feminine and divine masculine, and there's different teachers out there and messengers for that, I believe in the divine human. And that starts with our individual truth. And how do we know what our truth is? Well, I believe that our truth is a series of our beliefs. How do we know what are actually our beliefs and what are beliefs that we've adopted or acquired? Because we very often or very rarely stop and ask ourselves what we believe. So obviously my story is unique, and so here I am having to basically throw out everything I ever believed in or thought to be true, and I had to clean the slate and begin over. And so what I suggest doing is you start just by a few deep breaths. And you don't have to get all woo-woo and spiritual. We can just literally like a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And it kind of clears our mind. It's like erasing the blackboard. Couple of breaths in and out. Then we bring into our consciousness, into our mind, something, either a memory or someone or something that we know we love, that resonates. There's no question, is this right or wrong for me? This is something that I love. And we bring it into that cleared mind. and we observe the very subtle changes in our body. And if you actually do this, it's amazing how you will be able to see instantly your body changes. There's a flutter, there's a lightness, all these subtleties that we never actually pay attention to. And then we take another couple breaths to clear that image or thought from our mind. And we do the same thing, but we bring in an image that we know is negative, something that is not, we know disturbs us in some way. And we will instantly feel a different reaction in our body. Once we've kind of created that gauge, or we can play around with it, and we know, we can feel the subtle differences, then we can literally bring in every single belief that we can question, and then we can literally wash them through this knowing, through feeling. And it's very, very simple. So it's kind of a mixed match of many things, but I do it all the time in my life. When I have a big decision, when I'm confused, when I feel ungrounded, when I don't feel fully connected to this voice, I will lie down somewhere quiet, and I will breathe in and out, and I will just bring everything it's on the top of my mind at that moment, any decision I'm making, any feeling, and I can literally know exactly what is mine and what is not. And it doesn't have to be for a truth, it can be for a decision, like I said. But for many, many years, I was running around on borrowed truths, and I had no idea. And I didn't understand why I was so unhappy and so lost and unfulfilled, because I had left the cult, which everyone said was bad, and I had fully, embraced society. And I was so lost and so alone and so unhappy. And it wasn't until I started questioning who I am, what do I believe in, what is truth anyway? All of these questions. So I think questioning is a very key active role that begins the process. So we question, then we take them, we wash them through this beautiful knowing that exists in all of us, that no one and nothing can take from us. And then we build our identity and our truths and our beliefs and who we truly are. And then we can go out and we can authentically present ourselves to others and truthfully, in my opinion, serve each other better when we're connected to our honest truth, our individual truth. Because then we go out in the fullness of who we are. And when we are there for one another, we're not taking and feeling a lack. We are so complete, we are so plugged into our power source that we have the ability to serve and give to one another.
Wow.
Beautifully.
That is such a beautiful, that's the first time I've heard that. I mean, it's not the same. There's a lady called Natalie Ledwell, who's Mind Movies, so Natalie Ledwell and Mind Movies. And part of that process is about that, going through, because quite often we have something in our lives or in our mind that is the worst things could possibly be, and we avoid it.
Yes.
It's like, I don't want to even think about it, right? So where she takes you is to a safe space, a safe place, and then allows you to feel what that feels like in terms of visualizing it, right?
Yes.
Saying, well, this is the worst thing that can happen, right? Okay, and you go to that level, so you feel it in your body. And then we roll to, okay, that's the worst that can happen. What's the best thing that can happen? And then you roll to that.
Yes.
And then we start to get into this place where then we're less, because fear drives us, right? And fear doesn't allow us to think clearly. It inhibits the way that we think and the way that we consider, and that part of our brain, that rational, not rational so much, but that part of our brain that is working stuff out. So I really get your process, a part of it, and how you go through the feeling as the access to freeing yourself and then connecting with the truth. And I love that thing about this is mine, this is yours.
Yes.
And I have this conversation a bit recently with people because, quite often it's easy for us to be in a conversation with someone who maybe has a strong personality, and they're just no. And then we feel just like, oh, I'm bad and wrong. It's like, well, hang on a second. This is mine and this is yours. So what you're saying is your viewpoint, and I get that, based upon what's going on for you right now, but it's not mine.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be mine. And I think Rhonda again was something like, karma, my karma is how I respond. How you start has got nothing to do with me, because that's yours.
Yes.
And I love that. whoa. And this part, growing up as a kid, for me, there was, and it's still there now, right? This part that no one will ever get to. It's this part of me that's so super protected that got me through the bullying, the racism, and all this other stuff that was happening around me when I was growing up. And, coming into a relationship was quite difficult because, there's, when you're with someone who you love and they want to really discover you at your deepest level, and you don't really want to give that bit away because you want, it's mine, I want to protect it like forever. Now, how do you come around that? Because this assimilating, and we're getting to, I know people here want to know a little bit more about the cult and on. Don't want, we're getting to that.
Juicy details.
We're getting to that. Getting to the juicy details. We're getting there. But when I look at you and I see this beautiful woman who for me appears to be extremely functional, aware, sensory, feeling, and you hug, and you look at someone and you smile, like you strike me as a person. And again, not a quote in my head about the depths to which you've suffered injustice, sadness, the depths of all of that is the depths to which you can love.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And that's the ultimate. So when you've been all the way over there, and if you can bring that in, then the capacity that you have to love someone else is endless. It's unlimited.
Yes.
Right? So coming back to my question in there somewhere is, this part of you that no one was ever able to touch, from what it feels like. Like we've got a sense of, where or who you were born as, and this connection exercise that I'm sure came through over the years of being there as well. But there might be some people here kind of figuring out, well, I get, not all the way yet, but I get that you came from this place that was tough, that left you with scars and all the rest of that. But then how did you assimilate? And how did that part of you that you kept away from everyone else, like how did you let that come to be part of your life?
So that aspect of integrating that part of me is a very new process for me. And for many, many years, it was locked very tightly shut. And relationships were challenging. Connection with other people was very challenging. And it wasn't, I thought when I first escaped the cult that all I had to do was just assimilate into society. I was very street smart. I literally watched everyone and everything. I picked up real life very fast. And I remember making a conscious decision saying, these people in this cult are no longer a part of my life. Everything that happened is no longer me. And I literally remember taking all of that and putting it in a metaphorical box and throwing it away. And I actually forgot many, many aspects of my life there. And my whole goal was just assimilate as fast as possible into society, start over, make up for lost time. And it's only been in the last 3 to 4 years that finding myself once again very close. I struggle with depression, as you can imagine. And I mentioned to you, I learned that depression is repressed rage, and repressed rage is repressed grief. So if we think we can get away with not processing pain in our lives, I don't think we can, or at least we can't move forward. And so I tried for many years to just become normal and never ever access my past. But getting back to your question, how I've been able to connect emotionally was that I went back with the help of beautiful people along the way who held me during the process. But I did go back, and I had to go back and access the memories, the feelings, the trauma, the pain. And it was terrifying. And it's a process that I am still working on. There are still boxes to unpack. But with every box that I unpacked, first came a beautiful power, strength, and wisdom, which is why I feel so strongly about writing this book and speaking, because now I feel that, wow, I have gone to dark places, but I've come back. And if someone doesn't have to go there, if I can bring back that gem, then what a beautiful life I've had. So I feel very honored that I was chosen to go down into the darkness and come back up and bring the light for others. So yes, and so with each box, I recognize there's this beautiful pearl of wisdom that was my reward at the end. And it got me, I started to break down. I started to become softer. I started to share my feelings. I started to, as I faced those fears, then the fear of letting someone close wasn't as frightening. So it was an unpacking of my traumas. It was facing, and it wasn't nearly as terrifying once I began the process that I thought it was going to be. And it's been incredibly rewarding.
Wow.
So.
Wow. So now, thank you.
Yes.
Now people here are probably wondering, so an abusive cult, like, what was it like? What was the day-to-day life like? That abusive part, what do you mean by that word? So if you can share with us,
sure.
Where was it? Don't give us the grid coordinates.
The longitude. Okay.
Maybe not the longitude and latitude, but maybe the state or whereabouts in the US.
It was in New York State, a couple hours out of New York City, in a very rural part of the state. So it was very conducive to privacy. We were up on a ridge. Anyone familiar with New York geography? New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, the three states that border one another. There's the Delaware River that runs along. So it's right there, and there's ridges. So there's these it's actually beautiful, these beautiful ridges along the water. And so we lived, our cult, our compound, our community was up on one of the hills. So we actually were on a ridge. And it kept us fairly isolated from the surrounding neighborhoods and area. It was already very rural. And we lived, we had homes, so we had communal homes, and then we had individual homes as well, but we lived very close together. And it was something that our leader, the man who started this, he was in AA. He actually helped write the big book for anyone who's familiar with AA, with Bill Wilson. And he bought this plot of land to help other addicts continue on with their recovery. So at first, I believe perhaps the intention was to serve and create community. But it goes back a little bit, something I've been really considering in my own life as I step forward and speak my truth, only my truth, and share my techniques, is to not preach, it's to practice. Because I see, having grown up in a cult, where someone who is preaching stops practicing, and now we had a very abusive cult. I don't believe he started off with the intent to create an abusive environment, but I think he stopped being the word that he spoke, and that in and of itself took him down a dark path. But to fast forward, he, by the time we were in full abusive cult mode, he was a raging alcoholic, who was quite physically abusive. He controlled every aspect of our lives. We were controlled as to what time we went to bed, what time we woke up. Women were less than men, so we had very strict dress codes, and we were very, our role was to be submissive and serve the man. Everything was controlled. He seized all finances, so we had all control over everyone's social security numbers, credit cards, bank accounts. So there was very little personal freedom. But even outside of a cult, where you have a leader and you have someone who is inflicting abuse, physical abuse, there was a lot of different levels and kinds of abuse going on there. I'm also in the process of accessing my own memories because, as most of us know, in traumatic situations, oftentimes we separate and we kind of, disassociate. Yes. Yeah. So I like to only talk about those memories that I am clear that I can stand behind. Other aspects I'm still uncovering other levels to that. But going back to abuse, any one thing, organization that takes your right to choose, that takes your individual truth, that steals and robs you of the right to discern for yourself is abusive. So even if there was nothing more that happened, he seized our beliefs and he controlled us through programming, and we no longer had our individual right to discern and make choices for ourselves. Yes, the adults that went there chose and gave permission at some level. So it goes both ways. But to me, abuse is any time any organization, individual, family, church forces a belief system or a way of being on someone. To me, that's abuse. So, yeah. Okay.
You know, like, I think most people here who'll be watching as well we get a sense of it, right? But we weren't part of it. So it's, you know, the things you can talk about, like what were some of the ones that were probably the most traumatic experiences for you?
So, so to give it a little context, we were Christian. We were basically, it was a made-up religion. Our cult leader made up, but it was strongly Catholic. It had a lot of the Catholic beliefs, and he believed the world was ending. It's one of those classic stories, and that we were God's elite who were going to come and save the world. So the entire outside world was evil, and if we stepped out or thought or became part of, we were instantly going to hell. But this small group of 60 people, including children, were God's elite. But we were very sinful, and the only way we could do this very special, chosen job that we were here to do was to have rigorous discipline and basically be beaten, because we had the devil inside of us all the time. And getting beaten was basically the leader's drunken fits. There was, as children, we were not really allowed to be children. There was corporal punishment, stripping naked and being beaten in front of everyone to watch. We would watch our parents get beaten at all of our cult gatherings. You never knew. We would come to worship, sing songs, whatever. At any moment, the leader could just jump up and drag someone to the center and start beating them. And as children, we were beaten a lot. And hit, they like to say punished, but stripping a child naked and bringing everyone around to watch is pretty gruesome. So we really broke. They broke down families. So the way it worked as well is we had a hierarchy, and the way you really wanted to be, the more elite you were, you didn't quite have to do everything. You wanted to be more privileged, and we had definitely the hierarchy. And the best way, one of the fastest ways to kind of raise in the ranks was to bring other members in and to report. So you never knew who was doing what, but you didn't actually do anything wrong. They would just decide. Everyone had the right to tell you that they knew you were in sin. And we would sometimes sit for hours and be screamed at. You're in sin. What have you done? For hours. They wouldn't let us sleep, trying to force something out of us that didn't exist. So even family members would turn on family members, or if you didn't turn on your family member, you would get in trouble for protecting. So it was a very frightening, cutthroat environment, because you weren't safe. You never knew who was watching, who was going to tell, who was going to bring you up, if you were going to get in trouble, if you would get beaten, if you were going to be ripped out of your family and put in the communal house. You just didn't know moment to moment. And as a child, your parents weren't allowed to protect you. So if they tried to, then they would be beaten. So it was really every baby, child, and person for themselves, under the context, because then you say, well, why are people there? What are your parents? What are these adults, these highly educated adults doing there? But again, it's twisted in this belief that we were helping one another to get the evil out of us so that we could become these God's chosen, that we're going to save the world. So it's complicated to explain. And interwoven within all of this injustice were real, solid truths that felt right to me, things that resonated. So it's a very strategic process, the brainwashing. There's always just enough good. They give you just enough. They beat you, then they love you. You're constantly getting torn. It's very confusing. So, 1 minute they're beating, can I say shit? They're beating the shit out of you. And the next thing, they're hugging you and telling you how much they love you and you're like such a special person. And then they're giving you wisdom that resonates with your own individual truth. That's true. And so it became very complicated to kind of figure out. Like, I believed truly that the outside world was evil. And even when I left, I remember I was shocked at how beautiful and wonderful everyone was in the world, how kind. And I really thought everyone in the outside world was possessed by the devil. It was one of the first shocks. I was like, wow.
It's brilliant. Just from that point of view. And I can relate to some of it, but it's, this just enough pain to then you get the reward, and then you're vying for the attention of the leader, and you're in that place of it's brutality, but then reward, and you're looking for that reward.
Yes.
And as you mentioned, just enough to keep you in.
Yes.
And enough of the story woven around the outside, right?
Yes.
And what people were like, and this lofty ideal that you're standing for as God's chosen ones, right? To save the world. So therefore all the beating and the brutality is for a reason, and the reason's a good reason. It's a reason that's worth not necessarily dying for, but a reason that's worth giving your life to. And, so I get that. I must admit, personally, the bit that I struggle with the most is the kids part. Having 2 kids now and saying that you can't protect them is like, that one hurts. Like that one hits. Yeah. But I get it. And then, and you answered the other question of, why wouldn't people want to get out? But when you're tied in like that in such a contextual, brilliant way,
yes,
then you just don't want to, because as you said, if I go out, it's going to be the worst. It's like the devil is out there, not in here.
Right. Yes.
Wow. that's...
And a lot of the members that joined, because it was steeped in the principles of AA and helping people recover, you're dealing with people that came and received the recovery there. So there's a sense of, if I leave, I'll go back to drinking. I'll go back to using drugs. A little bit of a codependency, perhaps. But people's recovery was linked to this place as well. So on top of the fear of, like, someone like myself believing that I would become, we believed in possessed by the devil. And then other ones feeling their sobriety was contingent.
Like what comes up, and there's a few people here that I won't point out, who will understand this inherently. So my partner Marina, grew up in Jakarta, wealthy family background and all the rest of that. But some of her friends, one was a great DJ and traveled around the world, DJing, and she had the life that when you look on Instagram, right, that you wish you had, right? Deep down, not even deep down, like on the surface, like, I wish my life was like that, right? And traveling around the world, playing music, hotels, parties, and all the rest of that. So for 20 years, I was running some of the best clubs in the world, right? And so I know the life, hanging out with some of the biggest celebrities in the world, some of which are still friends, right? So I get it. All the way from there, becoming a coach and a speaker and dealing with this one and what everyone calls the lowest of the low. These people are nothing like these ones, but we're all the same. Actually, we want to be loved, want to be respected, fulfilled in what we're doing, and there's a few other things as well. So why am I bringing this up? Now, she became radicalized. Now, I'm not talking about the religion here. I'm talking about human beings, right? And then what I said to Marina, I'm saying, well, she's closer to being radicalized than what you think. And most intelligent people, it's the same way too. What's professed to be intelligence, why? Okay, so for her, so I see through the bullshit, right? So I know that traveling around the world is great, but then when you're living in hotel rooms all the time, you're playing at 2, 3 a.m. when you should really be asleep, right? Sorry, guys, I'm going to upset anybody. Because, I lived clubs 20 years, right? So you're going to bed, and if you don't do certain things, then it does affect your mental well-being. I learned what those hacks were, and I was doing it all the time, right? And I learned, so if you want to know what they are, ask me, and I'll tell you what they are. But what happened is that, so then she's going to bed like that. She's using drugs to keep awake. Then all of a sudden, this becomes your life. The money is incredible, the parties are incredible, but then what takes place is that within you, you're beginning to lose the sense of yourself.
Yes.
And you're selling yourself cheap. What I mean by that is that you're being extremely well paid, but what you're giving up is in a way, not your freedom, but you're giving away your right to well-being. So what happens is when you're around this for a long time and people around that area, what you're around, you become. So most people go out, and I'm still going to do clubs again. So I'm not dissing clubs at all. They play a very vital role, and I'm super happy that I did it, and I'll do it again. But the point is, for a lot of people in that scenario, that just like the flock with you, are coerced into being in a certain way.
Yes.
DJ, drugs, all this stuff. So what happens then is eventually you became disassociated from yourself. And now all of a sudden you're locked into a life that you don't want. So I don't want to travel anymore. I don't want to live in hotel rooms and eating hotel food. I don't want to be going to sleep and then waking up at 3 a.m. and going to play to a bunch of people who couldn't care less. I don't want that, but I'm now stuck in that life. And then what's worse is all of my social media and everything else is putting me in that position. So now I don't really want to give that up. Now, enter in, and we call it radicalized, but it doesn't really matter what it is. Come here and say, hey, your life is shallow and meaningless, isn't it? Now, most people don't talk to you like that because they see you as being someone who they held on like a mantle, right?
Yes.
So that I'm going to bow down to you. I'm not going to talk at you.
Yes.
So now it's like, well, look, your life is kind of empty and meaningless, right? Like, no, but it is.
Yes.
So then if I promise you love, if I promise you a way to get back to yourself, and I can give you a glimpse or an insight into that, you're going to take it almost every time. And along the way that you do that, if they say, hey, you want more of this feeling that you have now of being whole, of being connected to something that's larger and greater than yourself and give you the sense of well-being and fulfillment, yes, I do. Well, look, just give me your money. Give me this, give me that. Leave that freedom. You don't need this, you don't need that, because what you're getting is this. You'll take it every time. So a lot of these guys who you see on TV and in social, who are very famous and are very well, they are the most at risk. Like, the life looks great, but it's behind what you see. Yes. And I know a lot of these guys extremely well. So I know what their life is. So all I see are connections, Yes. I see from what you're saying just how people were coerced into that, but then were told the outside world, and others came in from the worst parts, right? If
Yes.
you come in as an alcoholic or whatever you
Yes.
might be, and in there I find something else, and I'm now addicted to the
Yes.
feeling,
Yes.
right? In the same way as the DJ becomes addicted to that,
Yes.
people, right?
Yes. Yes.
Worshipping and and then the drugs take the place of your own self-esteem.
Yes.
And when the drugs switch you out and your self-esteem is gone, then you have your worthiness is gone.
Yes.
So then now when it comes to worthiness, right? So you're saying before how it was set up in a way that all of these things were kind of taken away from you, or all these things were planned and programmed in you. So then how on earth did you manage to look after or collect this worthiness? I am worthy. How?
Wow. Worthiness that's a ongoing process as well. And And it goes back to unpacking the trauma of my past. And we were intentionally brought up and raised to be worthless because that is how they controlled us. And in the beginning, when I didn't feel worthy, I had a series of events that happened that were so brutal that I snapped, and I thought to myself, I'm getting out of this place. I'm risking hell. I'm risking going to hell because I'm in hell, and it can't be any worse than here. And when I left, I completely just disconnected from, that's how going back for a second, that's how I was able to get out from their control, is at a certain point, I made the decision, I don't care about right or wrong, I don't care about God or the devil, I don't care about heaven or hell, I'm in hell now, and I'm willing to risk the chance of going to this supposed hell. And so the first thing I did is completely detach so that the methods of control, which were physical, and they no longer could reach me. And so I think I'm going to get to your question because I know I just went off a little bit.
It's about what it's triggered.
Okay, we'll go with this. Then for the moment, I feel like it's going to come full circle.
Keep going.
Okay. And so what I ended up doing is, once I detached from their mechanisms of control, I was no longer afraid because the fear was they said I'm going to hell, it was the physical abuse. So when I had no fear, I could stand up to them and I could say no. And so I started saying no. And I started allowing them to beat me or do any of their other methods of control. And I literally detached. And so again, there was that voice inside of me that was kind of leading me. And it got me to have enough. I stopped. The only reason I was staying, going back to your point about the children, was for my parents, because I knew up until that point they would get in trouble. And the children, I took care of. Many of the children there were like my own. I actually felt I loved them sometimes more than their parents because their parents were so infiltrated in serving that and I was always a bit of, I always protected them even before when I snapped and said I'm getting out. But for several years I stayed because I didn't know, how can I free myself? These are not my children. They can't come with me. I have been protecting them to some degree. So that was a really challenging battle for me. But eventually I became a problem at the cult because they could no longer control me and I was speaking out. And all of a sudden, God told them that I was called outside of the cult. Suddenly, in the history of the cult, I was the chosen one to go out into the evil world. And now the world was not going to eat me up and I wasn't going to be possessed. I was being called out or kicked out, however you want to see it. So I went out into the world and I had no self-esteem. I had no self-love. I had a lot of shame. I felt our family was one of the lowest in the hierarchy. I personally was bullied, and I was told that I was ugly and worthless and stupid, and I believed it. And I went out anyway, but I was always I'm very good at just pretending. And so for many, many years, my life was just one big pretending, one big lie, basically. I acted as if, and it's not until now recently, most of the power that I have now and the message, which is why I'm writing the book, it's not about the book, I'm not pushing the book, it's just more about the message. Why I'm, for the first time in my life, stepping forward is because I have connected with healing. I have accessed my traumas, and what is happening as a result is so unbelievable that I want everyone to experience the freedom that comes from this process. And so now, for the first time in my life, I'm connected truly with my knowing, with myself. I'm empowered, and what comes with that is self-love. And I love myself more today than I've ever loved myself, and it's just in the last few years. And it's going back and addressing what has happened to me. There's another beautiful healing method that helped me. And I think this is very well known, but they say, I think everyone ages 1 to 4, 5, 6, there's a certain critical moment in our lives where we start to form, something happens to us and we start to form our story or our perception of life. And obviously, it could be very simple, as your mother said, kissed you goodnight, and you wake up in the morning, she's not there. She said, see you in the morning, and she's not there. And in that split moment, you feel, in that moment you go, when your mom's not there, you think she doesn't love you, she's abandoned you. 2 seconds later, she comes in, she ran across the hall to give someone. But in that moment, a story is birthed. So take that, and then take it if you are living in an abusive environment. We start to create all these stories, and we start to see the entire world through the perception of that abused child, in my case. I gained back my connection to myself, my understanding, and my love for myself by going back into those experiences when deep trauma happened to me, reprogramming the experience as an adult who is now safe, no longer in that experience. Now my body is programmed. I don't have to see the world as unsafe. I can actually go back by accessing the trauma. I don't have to become re-traumatized. I can actually recognize it, feel it, and now retell the story, because the story that my body is holding on to is of a small traumatized child. But I am not a small traumatized child. So that process is going back and understanding the fullness of it, not repressing the pain, feeling the pain, recognizing it, taking all of what comes with that pain that I experience, reprogramming myself, empowering those experiences. I'm here now and I'm safe. So,
how do you do it? What's the process?
Okay, well, I did work with various professionals, people that are trained, and there's many different ways to do it. You can do, regression. You can work with a therapist. There's people that actually specialize in this. You can also work with plant medicine. That's not for everybody, but plant medicine, they're doing clinical studies now, working with MDMA and other psychedelic medicines under the supervision of a trained professional, because it allows you to go into the pain softer and access the memories and the exact point when that belief was formed. But now I do it in my own meditation by leading myself to that space, and a breath is very important. I do this breathing where I connect. I connect with that knowing. When I'm in that fully plugged in state, then I can go into breathing, and I can guide myself now to these moments, and I can get the clarity and remember. So it's probably not something you should try at home on your own. It's probably something, if someone is interested in, if they're unhappy, if they're feeling lack or loss or disconnection or pain. I mean, I really understand. For years of my life, I lived in great pain. I was on the verge. I was always a few hours away from wanting to kill myself for most of my life. I've lived in great sadness and depression. And now I don't. I live in mostly a lot of joy. It's a work in progress. I have days, but if you want to access I highly suggest finding a trained professional, but really going in. It's not frightening at all, and it will change your life. We don't have to be afraid of what happened to us, because we are not the same person that we were when those things happened to us. But that memory is lingering in our body and making all of our decisions for us, including taking our happiness, including taking our joy away. And we're not if it's a traumatic event from childhood, we're not children anymore. We're very strong, stable adults now. I want the me now making the decisions in my body. I don't subconsciously want that terrified little girl controlling my life any further. And by me healing her, they no longer control me. The cult no longer controls me. So, I am working on, it's just not fully, I don't have it fully, but I hope that I can bring forward some very practical, helpful ways of, I tell my story in a very simple way. It's not for the spiritual community per se, it's for the individual that is hurting, that is in pain, that wants relief. And I walk you through my entire process, and I ask lots and lots of questions. And I hope that I can bring forward some beautiful tools that will help people have the courage to seek the help they need to access their trauma so that they can live today in joy. And I am living proof that it's not so scary and it's not so painful. It's the hardest step is making that choice, is saying I'm ready. I'm ready to go in, and it's incredibly rewarding. And that's where the self-love comes. That's where the power comes. That's where the beautiful secrets of the universe lie. It's magnificent.
I just want to give you a big hug. Give a round of applause, guys. We're not done, but give a round of applause. I just, it's, by the way, questions are coming. So if you'd like to ask a question, we'll give you a microphone very soon. Just turn the microphone towards your mouth. I know it sounds weird, but people always forget. There's so much, again, we can do 5 interviews, you and I, because there's so much more in there. The bit which, or part of which fascinates me is that I've done some of this work as well, and it's this, accessing these moments where things happen to you that were horrible moments, and teasing out the facts from the story that you tell yourself about it, because quite often what's far worse is the story that you tell yourself about it, not the actual physical act of what happened. Because the physical act of what happens, there are bruises, there are broken bones, there's something here that you were a cast for, and you have to heal. When it's healed, it's healed. You might need to do some physio, you might need to do some work like that in a soft tissue to keep everything moving again, and away you go. But the story that you tell yourself about what happened lasts for so many years more than the physical.
Yes.
So that, and as you said, there are different modalities to find this work and to reconnect with this. This is what actually happened. This is the story that I told myself about what happened, and I've been carrying around with me for years.
Yes.
And that part of me is making all of these decisions subconsciously.
Yes, yes.
Oh, no thanks, right? Yes. So it's like, okay, so then I can go back to that moment, can tease that out, and now I can choose a different story.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that story is a story which can then empower me and brings the energy and the power and the love back to me from a centered place of being safe within my own body, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And from that place is then where I can make a decision about whatever it might be.
Yes.
Man.
And safe, I think, is a really important word, a very important word. We must feel safe. That's very, very important in this process.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've had a life. So to summarize, if I can, born into a cult, not realizing, what was going on, yet part of you knew. Right? Exactly what was going on, in a sense of this isn't how it should be for me.
Yes.
Then going through all of that dissociation that allowed you to stand up within yourself, because we talk about, being able to bring yourself together at a point, but that dissociation actually helped you, because, that stripped the physical pain away from you being obedient towards them, right? Yes. It was like, listen, you can beat me, you can do all these things to me, but I've separated out so that I don't connect the two anymore.
Yes.
So you can't silence me, and you can't hold me back,
right,
and you can't push me down.
Yes.
And then it gets to a point, and then you mentioned about being there and being the mother to many others. So for you, again, it was more like, you stayed there because you were scared of the implications on other people, more so than yourself. From what it sounds like, you said you had the other kids, that you were being a mother to them.
Yes.
And you knew that if you did, then your parents would get hell, real hell, right?
Yes.
Cool. So then you got through that, and then they realized that we can't control this person.
Yes.
So we need to get her out.
Yes.
You know. So then they were called. They were called to ask the Lord to take you away.
Changed, yeah.
Right? They changed. This woman's evil. Right?
God changed his mind.
God changed his mind. And as you mentioned, so now when you mention escape, and then after that, we're going to get to the things I know people want to hear as well. So when it gets to escape, so what exactly happened there?
Okay, and I use the word escape. It's not that I crawled out of a cage, but I like to use the word escape, and I like to use the word cult, because I was programmed, community, church, like those are the reality of it. It was an escape. It was a personal escape, and I escaped through first disconnecting from the brainwashing, and then removing myself physically. So to go back to that, basically God came, spoke to the chosen, and decided that I was called out of the cult. And I still, this was my identity. This was all I knew. Even though I looked around and I saw the hypocrisy in those that were older and those that held the power, I believed in a lot of the religious aspects of what I was raised in. And there was a piece of me that wasn't sure if I was gonna go directly to hell at some point. But at a certain point, it became clear to them that they no longer wanted me there. And I was ready to risk that. And so it sounds very strange, but again, it was the leader's wife, actually, that called me to tell me the big revelation that I had been called out. And I just said, well, listen, I'm not going anywhere if my parents are touched, and I will come back up to check in on that. And every other one of my friends that's 18 years and older has to receive the same blessing, has to be given the same free pass without the guilt of hell and the devil and possession. And it was a very empowering moment for me. And she said, she didn't answer me. She excused me. I was up in their home, and she had this office. And about an hour later, she called me and she said, okay, done. And I called my friends, and I was like, listen, I'm out. We have a free pass, and I don't know how long this is going to work, but I'm going to ride this energy. And I went to the children. I realized at a certain point that, and it comes back to a core message that I like to speak or talk about, we are not here to save others. We're here to save ourselves first. And in serving ourselves, we actually then can become better and help others more. And so I don't know how I understood that, but it became very clear to me that I was actually in the long term going to do these children a better favor by standing up and getting out. By staying there and compromising, I wouldn't be showing them truth. This was my truth. I had to fight for what I believed was not correct. And I went to the kids and I told them I loved them. I knew it was only a matter of time before my name would be disgraced. But it was a very brave moment, and it was an important moment, and I had to do it. I had to make that break. It just was, this voice was within me. And so I did. Some of my friends, not everyone had, although they weren't pressuring, they were pressuring. So a couple of my friends wavered back and forth. A couple came, a couple stayed. But people began to start to leave afterwards. There was a ripple effect.
You did, for me, you didn't escape, you empowered. That's what you did.
Yeah.
Because escaping, escape, in my belief system right now, as you sit here, escape is like, I escaped.
Yeah.
Empowered is that I showed the way
Yes.
for others to follow.
Yes.
And that's a clear sign of leadership to me.
Yes.
And a huge part of the reason why you're succeeding whatever you decide to do. Because, you know, like in all of that, to have that awareness, to say, hey, you know what? Yeah, I'm gone. But these guys are going to come too.
Yes.
Or they have the opportunity to without volition, of their own volition, without you pressuring them and so on.
Yes.
That's powerful, darling.
Yes.
Mamma mia. That's power right there. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah, what a story.
Thank you.
I could speak to you for hours, but I know we probably don't have hours. So do you have the microphone? So if anyone has any questions, now some of them, most of them may have been answered already, but if you have any questions, just put your hand up and put the microphone towards your mouth and ask a question. I know, but every week they do it like, the microphone's over here. It's like, come on, we just said up towards your mouth. So guys, everyone have any questions? There is. Oh, there's one, Bhavna, of course. Good. Yeah, what a story. You know, and just before we get to Bhavna's question, so for those people now maybe looking at this, they may not be in a cult, but I love the way that you gave the analogy of it's actually the way the world is right now. Many would say that we are our freedom from that perspective, but we're not going to get into that. But from that perspective, it pretty much equals your definition of what a cult would be. But, you know, like looking back now, you know, like what would you say of the people that, as you said, you know, there's the people that, you know, aren't feeling connected to themselves, the people which are feeling alone, sad, depressed, along this trajectory, you know, what would you say are some of the most important aspects, attributes that they could either find or have or discover or be taught?
I think practicing asking questions of oneself, questioning everything, questioning what we think, what we believe, who we are, what started my journey in the last 3 or 4 years to allow me to be here now, much happier and more full of my true self, was questions. Because I just started, what is going on? Who am I? Why? I think the act of asking questions naturally begins a process within us. Taking a few moments every day and connecting to that knowing. It doesn't have to be a deep, you don't have to throw music on, it could take 2 minutes, but 2 or 3 breaths in, 2 or 3 breaths out. Just become aware of our body. As we start to make these little tiny steps towards stepping out of our automatic system, it jars. As soon as we ask, how often do we actually ask ourselves questions? How often do we ask, who am I? What do I believe in? How often do we listen to what we're thinking, what we're speaking in our mind when we're not paying attention? All these little moments of conscious stopping of a system that's automatically at play begins something. So I was a series of questions because I literally thought that the outside, my only problem was the cult, and that all I had to do was be part of society. And I was successful, and I felt like I was so depressed, and I didn't feel like I had a right to be depressed because I had accomplished all the external checks that the world told me would make me happy. So how dare I be depressed? And that actually threw me into more depression because then I thought how shameful and unworthy I was that I had things that others didn't have, and I still was depressed. And so I had to start questioning everything. And I feel that we have to do some of this ourselves. No one can ask the questions of ourselves. We have to ask it ourselves. We can have conversations, people can inspire us, they can ask us something, but we have to sit alone and start asking ourselves, who am I? What do I believe? What is my truth? What do I want? Listen to that voice. Why am I thinking this way? What happened? I don't know if that's helpful or not, but for me, it was the asking of questions that started me. And then I started meeting people. Then I started trying all sorts of, I was searching for a long time. Yeah.
You know, what comes up, and Bhavna, coming to your question, what comes up is that, you know, this empowering question, right? It's almost like, you know, we rub our head, especially me having no hair, and it's like a magic lamp,
Yes.
right? And the genie comes out and says, you know, your wish is my command, right? And you'll say, why is it that I always fail? Why is it I don't feel good enough? Why is it I'm not worthy? And the quality of the question determines the quality of the answer.
Yes.
Crap question, crap answer.
Yes.
You know, why am I always bad question in a sense of, then the genie says, well, I can tell you why, and gives you all of these reasons why.
Yes.
Whereas if you ask of yourself an empowering question,
yes.
you know, like Richard Harrington, good mate, put me onto this one, the empowering question. It's like, well, what quality is trying to be expressed
yes.
right now?
Yes.
What have I learned from this experience? You know, what can I take from this which is going to empower me in the days to come? So then again, I'm rubbing this, the genie comes out, your wish is my command. So that question, because your brain is like that, right?
Yes.
It's like a magic genie, and your head is like a magic lamp,
yes.
right? So whatever you ask it, it will give you the answer to.
Yes.
It won't discriminate if this is a good question or a terrible question.
Yes.
It will just answer whatever question that you give to it.
Yes.
So then you saying that, it just brings that up.
And I love that you said, I think a key, you were saying what, not why. Why is not why me, why is this happening? That's very depowering. What do I want? What do I seek? Who am I? Ask those kind of questions, not why does this always happen? Because as you were saying that, I was thinking, wow, it's the what that has the power, not the why, or who am I, not why, what. So I agree with you. I don't know, I just was feeling that, and I was like, okay.
I'm feeling you, girl. God dang, dang it. Now, Sister Bhavna, question.
Hi. Okay.
Hello.
I have many questions, but I'll just stick with one. So I think obviously your situation could be considered in a lot of ways very extreme. You know, that people maybe not resonate with the idea of the cult aspect of it. But what does, I think, permeate is that people are parts of communities, societies, cultural conventions, where in that setting, it's conventional to live in that way. And to have any thought outside of that or question it is deemed unconventional. And I think for any of those who are watching now or on the replay and at that kind of critical point where they're questioning that convention, at the same time of, you know, maybe being young and seeking that validation or the blessings of their family members and going against that convention. What was that dialogue like, and what is it like now if you are still in touch with those family members?
Okay, so now the cult no longer exists. My parents divorced and my father stayed at the cult. Within a year of me leaving, my mother left. You know, my father was very indoctrinated in that belief system, so he chose to have little to no contact with us. So I didn't have to. Fortunately, my mother, basically, me leaving prompted her, and within a year she was out. So I didn't have to go through that dialogue, and I wasn't speaking to my father at the time. I since have. I have a beautiful healing with both my parents. But I think it's very important, and I think that's the power of my story, is although it's extreme, we can all connect at some level, culturally, family, religion, where we are pressured or forced into a belief system that we've inherited or adopted, and we're not allowed to question it. And so is there really that much of a difference between the controlled environment I was in or just a more accepted controlled environment? So that is, I hope that my story does resonate with everyone, because we're all the same, and it's extreme enough that I think maybe it gives me a little credibility if I do speak to others, but I think we can all relate to it. And it starts with connecting back. I know I feel a little bit like a broken record, but it's my truth, and I am so empowered with the power of connecting with who we really are. Because if we connect in that space, if we plug into truly our truth, we are given a power that will give us the strength and the courage to stand for who we are, and we will be able to hold our own, I don't want to say against, but in the face of the pressure of others. So I think all of us can try to, it's like dating ourselves a little bit, like not dating, like, courting each other, ourselves, but really get to know ourselves and really connect to that space within us, because that is going to give us all of the courage and all the strength we need to navigate our way through all of these cultural, family, religious dynamics that are cults. So did I answer your question? Okay. I tend to go on tangents. I get caught up in something and I...
Yeah, but like part of this is about that, right?
Yeah.
It's about knowing that most of the time it's not even about the question, it's about what's triggered as a result of that question, right? And that's what's supposed to come forward. Now, all of us here, we know that she's got more than one question. Come on, girl. So, yes, Bhavna, you. Ask another one, a follow-up. I can tell you got one.
I think I know which question is that you want me to ask.
No. You answer whatever question comes up.
So it is a question I ask of anyone when I've attended. I've asked this of Robert as well. It's my standard question.
Okay, shoot.
If we could bottle you up and sell it, and people could buy you off the shelves, or at the time the children in the cult could have bought you, or a version of you, what would the top 3 ingredients be? And by that I mean like personality traits, characteristics. It could be compassion, it could be strength, it could be resilience, whatever it is. And just curious as to like how you would identify those top 3 for yourself.
Integrity, clarity of truth, courage, and compassion.
Beautiful.
There's a lot more.
Yeah. And as Bhavna said, Bhavna's going to be doing interviews for Speak Up Monday because she's amazing, and she is going to be the new person, right? But here's the thing, there's no right or wrong answer to that one. It's whatever's true for you. Whatever's coming up for you, that's what you've done. I think you have such an amazing story, and I like, because the obvious question always is, if you could live your life again, what would you do differently? Now, but I don't think that is with you, because I get the sense that you've already imbibed it, saying, well, I grew up exactly how I was supposed to, and now my message is about spreading this, right?
Yes, and the kind of. It is true. I wouldn't change a thing. I have gotten to the point, it's not just a phony, happy quote. I have gotten to the point in my life and in my journey where I am truly grateful, authentically grateful for the experiences that I have been through, because I believe it allows me to understand and connect with many people. And the wisdom, I know I'm saying the same thing, the understanding that has come from these experiences, I wouldn't change. And it also reminded me of something you said earlier when we were talking about people unpacking their boxes and changing those stories. And it comes back, I want to say this. couldn't always say this, and it's important that we don't say we're happy. I don't believe in saying, I'm so grateful for my trauma. I actually think that gratefulness is not how we heal, it's how we know we have healed. It's the result of having healed things that have been difficult in our lives. So if someone is also going back to maybe change that story, I wanted to say, it changes when we truly feel it. Sometimes there's a lot of, positive thinking, and we kind of get caught up, if I just say positive things all day long, that I'm a good person. But we have to honor the authenticity of ourselves. And if we don't feel like being grateful for our past, then don't be grateful for your past. If we don't feel like changing a story, or it doesn't feel, we recognize that there's an old story playing, but we don't feel the new story that maybe someone is telling us we should have, then don't reprogram that story. So I just wanted to reiterate that. I'm not saying that because it makes a good story now to end the show. I'm saying it only recently because it's true. And I'm not going to, I didn't say it until it's true. And I just think it's really important because sometimes in our healing process, people can feel intimidated or feel like they have to jump to all, it's a process. We have to, some days I still wake up and I struggle with depression. Other days I'm very empowered. We have to honor our truth, even if what I said today, even if tomorrow I wake up and I don't feel connected and I don't breathe into myself and I have a really shitty day because it's Lionsgate and I'm angry. No, I just think it's so, so important, and I don't want, we must honor the truth. And if the truth is that we're depressed, then we're depressed for this moment. And yeah, I just wanted to say that.
You know, like, and we're coming to we are coming to an end. I've no idea how long we've gone for. Oh, that's a healthy time.
Okay.
So no, but it's okay. A lot of this time, you know, you've been talking about who you are, right? Through these experiences of trauma, one of these empowering questions is, who am I?
Yes.
So if I asked you, and again, giving you full license, this is
Okay.
the truth for you right now, tomorrow it can change and all the rest of that. But yeah, if I was to ask you, you know, like, who are you? Like, who is Jessica Kahn? What would you say?
I would say that I am a channel of, okay. I am a woman who's no longer a small child or a young lady. I feel like I'm a woman fully. I feel like I'm wise. I feel like I am filled with compassion and love. I feel I am someone that is carrying within her a very sacred and divine message, that has experienced specific life experiences for the sake of others not having to go there. I feel that I have within me very sacred knowledge, and I oftentimes feel that I'm a channel and that I hold within me a message that when the time is right will come forward. I believe I'm here to hold people and be compassionate and kind and to remind people who they truly are. And I believe that the journey to find ourselves is actually a journey to remember. And I believe my life story and my experiences can be a reminder for many. And that, yeah, I feel I am a divine channel, an intuitive divine channel, and that there is a beautiful message that wants to come out that's in process. So I have not always been that. I think I have been an abused child. I've been a depowered, frightened woman. I've been many things, but at this moment, I feel like a wise woman is what I feel like.
Wow.
So.
Wow. What a beautiful outcome.
Thank you.
You know, with everything.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting because, so, you know, you were volunteered by a mutual friend.
Yes.
And it's interesting because this mutual friend I think I met once.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Becca, I met her once, and then some months later I get this random call, you know, seemingly random. Rob, SpeakuP Monday, yeah. I had this amazing friend, and again I met her once. Right?
Yes.
And I was like, okay. And then she told me a little bit, and I was like, yeah, sure, would love to meet her. And then when I met you and I just saw this person before me, you know, we spoke before about the acorn and the tree.
Yes.
You're the tree.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when I saw this majestic, beautiful tree, I was like, and she had that upbringing. This is a message that needs to be shared.
Yes.
You know, and that's why it was, for me, it was a no-brainer.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
And
thank
so look,
you. Thank you for seeing me.
So welcome.
Yes.
So welcome.
Yes.
And let's breathe that in for a minute. Hey. Thank you.
Yes.
Welcome. So, the work you do now, you know, what sort of work do you do with people, and how can they reach out to you?
So I have been sort of, I'm working on the book, and that has been my project currently. So I am dedicating the majority of my time to completing this book so that I can get it out and get the message out. And that is what I'm doing. But I have my social media pages, mytruth.mystory, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. Whatever it is, it's mytruth.mystory. And I am available for people to reach out to me. I'm not officially, at this moment in my life, offering services, or I'm trying to get the book out. I think the book is a very important platform and message, and I think people reading the book or connecting with the book will be the first step. But I am sharing pieces of the book on my Instagram and Facebook pages, as well as YouTube, and I am available to talk to anyone, send me a message. Like I said in the beginning, I don't think this is my wisdom. I think wisdom, knowledge is something that we share. So I'm happy to be of service and to answer questions or share any aspect of my story that people want to hear. For many, many years, I was very isolated. I kept myself. I did not let people close. But now I really want to live openly, and I don't have secrets, and ask me anything. And if my story or my answer or something I say can help someone else on their individual journey, then I feel that that's why I'm here. So I am available. The best way would be through my Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, mytruth.mystory.
Great. mytruth.mystory.
Yes.
Love it. And, you know, so two things come up. So number one, the way that we end the show is with you, the guest. I'll do a little bit first.
Okay.
And then if there's anything that you want to say, it might be something that maybe we haven't discussed yet. It might be reiterating a point that you'd like to, and we'll give you the full space and time to do that. And then after that, we'll finish the show in about a minute and a half.
Okay.
So you have a little bit of time to think, not that you need it. And, you know, again, I just want to acknowledge you for coming here. You know, it's no easy feat sitting down, you know, on the sofa, committing to, because it's open format. It means we go everywhere. There's nothing scripted. There's nothing set up. There's nothing like, oh, we're going to talk in this order on these things. As the questions come, so the questions leave. You know, and you know, one of the things which I've really enjoyed about your story is this divine channel. You know, and being this stand not only for women, but for human beings to, no matter what's happened, to know that there's a way that you can reclaim your sovereignty in many ways, and reclaim the possibility of who you can become.
Yes. Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
yes, very well.
Reclaim the possibility of who you can become. Mm-hmm. That's what I get from you. And to me, that is such a powerful message. Like, there's nothing, going back to the acorn and the seed, the majestic and the beautiful tree, like, that's infinite intelligence right there in a seed.
Yes.
You know, and that's what we all are, but who you really embody for everybody to see. Yes. You know? So I know that we could talk for so much longer. about so we'll do this again, and we'll talk about something different. But there's so much there, you know. So I can't wait to see the book, and that might be a good time actually when you come back on. Bring the book with you, right? And we can help to promote it and spruik it. There's a few people I'd love to introduce you to that might be able to help.
Excellent.
In that message, in that journey of, you know, sending that message out. After all, it's what I do, right? I connect people.
Yes.
Lucky that. But I'd love to, because, you know, I see the power of what your book can do, right? So for those guys watching here, thank you for your time. Now, as you know, 3 SpeakuP Monday feeds a week. Tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Lord, I wish I didn't do it at 7 a.m. What was I thinking? It's on Clubhouse. And tomorrow we have, who do we have? Dr. Venice Richards, human performance expert. Another, well, she's not Jamaican, she's Trinidad and Tobago. So another fellow West Indian, incredible woman, worked with athletes, governments, like human performance. Phenomenal woman. So 7 a.m., that's Bali time, GMT +8 tomorrow morning. If you're up, come and join us. If you're in the US, then it becomes Monday. It's so confusing, the time thing. Tuesday from Bali, but Monday, if you're in the US, 4 p.m. on the West Coast, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and on Clubhouse, SpeakuP Monday Q&A. SpeakuP Monday Q&A Club. And then the last one will be on Wednesday, Benedetto Daniele, and he is an incredible person who is all about ancient wisdom for humans, for us. Studied it for his whole life, an amazing guy. So we'll be replaying one of the interviews that we did with him a little while ago. Incredible interviews. So just check out SpeakuP Monday on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube as well. For more details, join our group, join our list, and be a part of the future. And then finally, we have it's a SpeakuP Monday special, which is Freedom Day Bali by my brother from a different mother called Richard Harrington. South African man, was financially free at the age of 24. Another incredible story. So he'll be giving away the 3 secrets of being financially free. That's coming up very soon as well. So in the meantime, thank you to the audience for coming. Thank you, audience, for coming in studio. Appreciate it. You can join us as we slowly get back to normal here in Bali. We'll start to fill it up with more people. And obviously you at home who are watching this, feel free to share it. If you have any comments, feel free to reach out, and you know you've got it, right? So mytruth.mystory. Yes. So connect with her. If you're feeling that resonance with her, with Jessica, reach out. Even if it's just to say thank you for sharing your story. You know, I was really inspired by what you had to say, right? Just reach out, because we love, and she would love to receive it, knowing that she's been of value for you. All right. So thank you finally, penultimately, to Tropical Nomad. We've got Itchy and Bella and Guzman. Thank you so much, guys, for making us look good. For those of you watching on Instagram, we tried this one here, which I think is dead, which means the phone ran out of charge. But anyway, we're trying to improve the sound. Otherwise, it's YouTube and Facebook Live, which is the superior sound experience. So thank you so much, darling, for everything which I said earlier on. I think you're an amazing stand, you know, for who we can become, and that possibility that we have within all of us, and you embody that. So thank you so much, darling, for being you and being honest and open and being a good sport. All right?
Thank you. Thank you for creating this platform for us as well. Good?
Yeah, so now you can just take it away.
Okay. All right, well, first of all, I do want to thank you for creating this space, and it's really an honor to sit here on your couch. And when I was coming to be on here, I told a friend of mine who's been following you, and she said, Robert has put in the work. He shows up every Monday. She's been following you since the beginning, and she said, he really puts in the work, and I'm super grateful that you have put in the work, because it allows me to sit here today and speak my message. So I'm incredibly grateful, and I thank you very much. You're welcome. So a final thought. It's a little bit, it sounds very trite, but I really do believe that the power in every single thing that we seek is within us. And that's, as someone who was locked up, so to speak, in a cult for 25 years, then freed out into the world at large. I have never felt more free than I do now, connected to my truth and my power. And I think it starts by a very simple act. I wanted to share a pledge that I make to myself every morning, that I wrote, that I stole or modeled after, depending on how you see it. The Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. In the United States, we at school and any public event, we put our hand on our heart and we pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. And so I've reworded this to pledge allegiance to myself, and I wanted to share it here. It's a beautiful way for us to honor ourselves and connect back with our truth. So here goes. I pledge allegiance to myself and the divinity that lies within, one knowing unto myself, indivisible, with uniqueness, truth, and love. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Round of applause. Thank you.